The last week in the NBA world has been primarily dominated by the NBA draft coming and going, where we saw the next generation of talent welcomed to their new homes for the foreseeable future. But while that was going on, we also saw a few teams make some very notable moves featuring some of the biggest names in the game. Free agency hasn't even begun yet, but we've already seen teams add players to their rosters that they're hoping can take them to another level. This brings us to today's video, where we'll be going through each of the 4 big trades that we've seen go down this summer so far, giving grades to every team involved based on how they came away from the deal. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first trade we'll be reviewing saw the Suns receiving Bradley Beal, Isaiah Todd, and Jordan Goodwin, and the Wizards received Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, 6 second-round picks, and 4 pick swaps, and the grades here are a B for the Suns and a D for the Wizards. For any of you who have been watching my videos for a while, you know that I've been saying that the Bradley Beal saga would end in the most predictable way ever for years now. It was clear as day that he was sticking around for the sole purpose of receiving the biggest contract extension possible. Then once he got it, he would force his way out to play for a contender. It seems as though everyone but the Wizards front office saw this coming, and now here we are with the Wizards being forced to sell him off for pennies on the dollar, when they could have traded him away a year or two ago for the Kings' ransom. I know they got some pick swaps, which will boost their draft position, but the fact that they didn't get a single first-round pick for him is completely disastrous. Now, as for the Suns side of things, obviously being able to add Bradley Beal is a huge boost and gives them arguably the most talented trio in the whole league, but by doing so, they handcuffed themselves in other areas. Beal's Supermax contract being added to the payroll means they have virtually no way to sign any kind of impactful depth pieces around their big 3, and after the way they went out in the playoffs this season, depth hurts them pretty badly. They've got all of the shot creation in the world at their disposal now, but finding a rhythm, building chemistry amongst the 3 of them will take some time, and they're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. Having top talent is typically most important for title contention though, so they still get a good B grade, but due to the ramifications of it, I can't give them an A. The next big trade we'll be reviewing was a 3-team deal that saw the Celtics receive Kristaps Porzingis and 2 first-round picks, the Grizzlies received Marcus Smart, and the Washington Wizards received Tyus Jones, Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, and a second-round pick, and the grades here are an A+ for the Celtics, a B+ for the Grizzlies, and a B- for the Wizards. Once Beal's departure became official, the Wizards followed it up by selling off Kristaps Porzingis. To be fair, Porzingis was more than likely going to leave in free agency due to the fact that he had a player option for the final year of his contract, but because the Wizards were able to work out a deal with the Celtics, Porzingis cooperated with them, opted in, and is now playing for the team that will most likely be the favorite to win the Eastern Conference. The rich keep getting richer because Porzingis is honestly such an amazing fit in Boston. He can play both power forward and center, so lineups with him and Robert Williams will be ridiculously tough to score on because of the dual rim protection. He's a very willing and able shooter from deep, so he'll space the floor well for them, and he's coming off of the best season of his career, carrying positive momentum into his new team. Adding him and a couple of first-round picks is actually ridiculously good business. Now, for the Grizzlies side of things, they ended the year knowing that they needed to reel in the locker room, and so by bringing in Marcus Smart, they found a player who can be an outstanding leader for their young, talented core, bringing the exact opposite kind of energy that Dillon Brooks left behind. Smart was the heart and soul of the Celtics for years, and his hustle and tenacity is contagious, so if he can lead a change in culture in Memphis, then they may be ready to take another leap once Ja Morant returns from his suspension. The next trade we'll be reviewing saw the Golden State Warriors receive Chris Paul in exchange for Jordan Poole, Ryan Rollins, a first-round protected pick, and a second-round pick going to the Wizards, and the grades here are a B+ for the Warriors and an A for the Wizards. Okay, so after 2 deals where the Wizards kind of got dragged through the mud, they remained active and flipped one of their newly acquired assets for a piece that fits much better into their future plans. Chris Paul, at his age, being where he is at this point in his career, was never going to want to waste one of his last seasons on a rebuilding Wizards team, and Jordan Poole came back down to earth in Golden State this year, which made the team skeptical about the contract that they had just paid him last summer. Poole is just 24 years old though, and has very clear talent and potential to continue developing as a scorer, so he's the exact kind of player that the Wizards were smart for targeting as they transition into their new era. Poole will have far more freedom in Washington than he ever had in Golden State, and that could definitely see him elevate his game. Now, as for the Warriors side of things, I've seen a lot of scrutiny about the deal towards the Warriors, and I understand where they're coming from, but I just disagree with the uproar. The criticism stems from the fact that they sold off a young talent in Jordan Poole in exchange for a supposedly over-the-hill Chris Paul, but the reason why I still give them a relatively good grade is because of where they are with their goals and aspirations right now. The Warriors are here to compete for championships and nothing else. Jordan Poole proved to be a pretty big liability in the playoffs this past season as one of the worst perimeter defenders in the league with some pretty questionable shot selection and decision-making offensively. He got benched in quite a few games during their playoff run, and after paying him big money, his contract was also holding them back. Chris Paul, as an experienced veteran who still passes the ball and makes plays for others at a level as good as anyone, is much more useful to them because they know they only have a few more years in title contention, and developing Jordan Poole is not the top of their priorities. On top of that, there was some clear animosity in the locker room between Poole and veterans like Draymond Green, and if the Warriors wanted to bring Draymond Green back in free agency, the likelihood of them doing so with Poole still there was slim. And finally, the last big trade we'll be reviewing saw the Jazz acquire John Collins and the Hawks acquire Rudy Gay and a second-round pick, and the grades here are an A- for the Jazz and a C for the Hawks. John Collins has been a trade block Hall of Famer for a few years now, finding himself in trade rumors year after year to no avail, but this year he finally got the move he's been coveting for a while, and the price it took to get him was shockingly lower than I think anyone anticipated. The Jazz now have an incredibly promising front court of Lauri Markkanen, John Collins, and Walker Kessler as they progress through their own rebuild, and I actually really like Collins as a target for them to take a chance on. I realize that Collins just had the worst season he's had as a pro, and his time in Atlanta ended on a sour note, but I'm still a believer in his talent, and Utah has very quietly established themselves as a team that does an outstanding job identifying underrated talent, being underutilized elsewhere, and getting the most out of them when they acquire them. Lauri Markkanen was a perfect example of this year, breaking out in Utah after failing to live up to his hype previously in his career, and ever since John Collins showed that he could average 20 and 10 a few years ago, his role has steadily declined, and he's become less and less happy about it. Collins has wanted a change of scenery for a while now, and I think we could see him return to his prior days as a very productive big man in Utah. The trade isn't a disaster for the Hawks because they freed up some cap space by getting off of Collins' contract, but obviously selling him for as little as they did doesn't warrant a very good grade either. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you thought of all of these trades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.